My name's Tyler, and this happened back when I was 17. Working nights at a pizza place on the edge of my hometown in central Ohio. I wasn't thrilled about the job, but it was that, or listen to my parents complain about me being unemployed all summer. So I clocked in, wore the sticky uniform, and drove a delivery car that groaned like it was dying every time it hit a hill. The pizza itself was genuinely awful. Some of the worst food I've ever tasted, and to this day I don't understand how that place stayed open. Between the bad food and the location being so far from downtown, we barely got any orders, which meant most nights were dead quiet. One slow night, I was restocking the drink fridge when the order tablet buzzed. A large sausage and olive pizza, which stood out to me because we almost never got olives on anything. The delivery address was miles past the edge of our normal zone, and I was about to reject it out of habit when my manager, a guy named Russell who mostly just sat in the back scrolling his phone, told me to take it anyway, since we hadn't had a single run in over an hour. So I grabbed the box, typed the address into my phone, and headed out. Right before I left, I actually read the delivery instructions stapled to the top of the box, which I normally skimmed past without a second thought. This one said, word for word, park on the street behind the house, walk through the backyard, knock on the back door only. It struck me as strange, but my 17-year-old brain came up with plenty of harmless reasons why somebody might want that. Maybe there was a sleeping baby inside. Maybe the front door was under repair. I decided not to overthink it and just drove. The night was thick and humid, the kind of heat that makes the air feel like it's pressing against your skin. And the smell outside was sour in that particular way summer nights sometimes get. Like hot asphalt and old plastic left in the sun too long. The drive took almost half an hour, way longer than I expected, winding further and further away from any real lights or houses until I finally pulled onto a narrow gravel road running behind a row of dark backyards. No street lights, no porch lights, nothing but shapes and shadows. I parked, grabbed the pizza, and clicked on my phone flashlight to walk up the overgrown yard toward the back of the house. The place looked completely dead. No lights on inside, no car in the driveway, just a sagging fence that didn't even close all the way. I climbed the little rise toward an old white door with a small curtained window near the top, and I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, already dreading the conversation I'd have with Russell if I came back with an undelivered pizza. That's when the curtain moved. Just a small twitch, barely anything. But I was staring right at that little window, and I saw it clearly. Like someone on the other side had brushed it aside just enough to look out at me before letting it fall back into place. My stomach dropped, and every hair on my arms stood straight up. I took a step back without meaning to, and that's when the curtain snapped fully open. No warning at all, and a face filled the glass, inches from mine, pale and completely still. Eyes locked directly onto me, like they'd been waiting there the entire time I'd been standing on that step. I froze solid for what felt like a full second before every instinct in my body screamed at me to move, and I stumbled backward off the step so fast I nearly dropped the pizza box entirely. Before I could process it, headlights swept across the yard behind me, and two unmarked cars rolled up onto the side street near where I'd parked. Close enough that the sudden glare made me flinch all over again. A man stepped out, lit from behind by the other car's headlights, and waved me over. I figured he was the guy who'd ordered the pizza, so I walked toward him, only to have him flash a badge in my face the second I got close. Undercover cop, plain clothes, dead serious expression. He told me to get back in my car and wait. That was it. No explanation. I backed away and climbed into the delivery car, hands shaking slightly on the wheel, and that's when I realized it wasn't just two officers. There were at least 5, all moving in total silence, flashlights off, spreading out around the house like they were trying not to be seen or heard at all. One of them crept up to that same back door, tried the handle slowly, found it locked, and simply backed off without a word. I sat frozen behind the wheel, watching a scene I clearly wasn't supposed to be witnessing. when the officer who'd flashed his badge finally walked back over and crouched by my window. He glanced at the pizza box on my passenger seat and let out a long breath. He told me, carefully, like he was choosing every word, that there was an active investigation on that property and they'd been staking it out for a while, and that I'd shown up at the exact moment they were repositioning. He asked to see the order details, and when I pulled it up, there was nothing useful there beyond a phone number, the address, and a first name. Jerry. He took the number down and told me to leave immediately. When I complained that my manager would be furious, he just shrugged and repeated himself. So I drove off, pizza still in the passenger seat, replaying the whole thing on the ride back. It didn't fully hit me until I was standing in the parking lot of the pizza place. If those officers hadn't been out there, if I'd knocked one more time and someone had actually opened that door, I have no idea what would have happened to me. I still don't know if the person inside knew they were being watched, or if I was some kind of unwitting test to see whether the coast was clear. I never got an explanation, and honestly, I'd mostly forgotten about it until an old friend brought it up recently. Some nights though, I still think about that curtain twitching, and how close I probably came to whoever was standing right behind it. It happened to a coworker of mine named Marcus just last year. He's 40 now, married, 2 boys, works in insurance, about as ordinary a life as you can picture. A couple years back, his father passed away and left behind a beach house in Delaware, 1 block off the boardwalk, nothing fancy, but it had this beautiful upstairs deck looking straight out over the ocean. Marcus and his family started going down every summer after that, treating it like a little tradition in his father's memory. Last July, they'd gone down for a midweek stay, quieter crowds, and one Wednesday night. After the boys had gone to bed, Marcus and his wife were out on the deck with wine and a deck of cards. That's when his older son, Caleb, came outside looking uneasy, saying he kept hearing scratching in the wall of his room and it was keeping him up. Marcus figured it was just an old house settling, told his wife to relax, and followed Caleb downstairs to check it out. They stood by the wall near Caleb's bed for almost 20 seconds before Marcus heard it too. Faint scratching low near the baseboards, definitely not coming from the attic or the roof. He crouched down and pressed his ear to the wall to listen closer. And that's when he heard breathing, slow, deep, unmistakably human. He barely had time to process it before a scream tore out from inside the wall, guttural and furious, loud enough that he flinched back so hard he nearly fell. He grabbed Caleb by the arm and bolted down the hall to grab his younger son, Nolan, scooping him straight out of bed without even waking him gently, and ran for the stairs screaming for his wife the whole way. Behind him, another scream ripped out, this one much closer, and when Marcus turned, a man covered head to toe in filth was sprinting down the hallway directly at them, moving faster than anything human should move in a space that tight. Marcus barely got both boys up the stairs and out onto the deck in time, slamming the sliding glass door shut behind them just as the man hit it full force, hard enough that Marcus was certain the glass would shatter on impact. The man clawed and pounded at the door, shrieking, smearing something dark and wet across the glass with every strike, screaming things Marcus still won't repeat out loud. Marcus threw his entire body against the door to hold it shut, yelling for his wife to grab the boys, cover their ears, and get them away from the glass. He locked eyes with the man on the other side, close enough to see every filthy detail of his face, and held that door with everything he had while his arms burned and his heart hammered, certain the glass was going to give way any second. The police arrived just before it did, 2 officers coming in from the side of the house, tackling the man from behind and dragging him off the door. When they finally cleared the house afterward, they found something Marcus never knew existed, a crawl space entrance hidden underneath the back porch, running the length of the foundation, with a second access point through a loose panel in the back of Caleb's own closet. The man had been living down there for months, stealing food from the house and the neighbor's trash, and later admitted to a detective that he considered the crawl space his home. and had planned to hurt Marcus's family that very night for intruding on it. They didn't go back to the house for the rest of that summer. Marcus had the crawl space sealed permanently before they ever returned, and even now he says he still checks that closet panel every single night before bed just to be sure. I still can't do laundry after midnight, and after what happened in my old apartment building, I don't think I ever will again. I lived on the 9th floor of a high-rise in Chicago for about 2 years. The kind of building with a shared laundry room down in the parking garage instead of on each floor, which nobody loved, but everyone tolerated because the rent was decent for the location. I worked late shifts back then, bartending downtown, so most of my laundry runs happened well after midnight. Usually with the garage completely empty except for me and the hum of the fluorescent lights. The garage itself was 2 levels underground. Concrete everywhere, that particular kind of quiet where every sound bounces and stretches longer than it should. The laundry room sat in the far corner of the lower level, past a long row of parked cars and a section of the garage that had been under construction for months. Cordoned off with plastic sheeting and caution tape that nobody had bothered to take down, even after the work seemed to stop entirely. One night in early spring, I came down around 1 in the morning with a full basket, badge swiped through the garage door, and started down that long row of cars toward the laundry room like I had 100 times before. About halfway there, I heard something scrape against concrete somewhere behind the plastic sheeting, a short, dragging sound gone almost as soon as it started. I stopped, listened, heard nothing else, and told myself it was probably a rat or loose plastic catching a draft from the ventilation system. I kept walking. I got my laundry started, sat on top of the folding table, scrolling my phone the way I always did while I waited. And about 15 minutes in, the sound came again, closer this time. Definitely from behind that plastic sheeting, longer and heavier than before. Like something was dragging its full weight across the floor rather than just shifting position. I walked over to the edge of the caution tape and looked through a gap in the sheeting with my phone flashlight, telling myself I'd see exposed rebar or a stack of construction materials and feel stupid for being nervous. Instead, the light caught something crouched low against the far wall, still motionless, roughly the size and shape of a person folded down into an impossibly small space, arms wrapped around its knees, head tucked so far forward I couldn't make out a face at all. I froze with the flashlight beam locked on it, waiting for it to be a mannequin, a pile of drop cloths, anything except what it actually looked like. And then, without lifting its head even slightly, it spoke. Low, flat, directed straight at me from behind that curtain of dark hair. I don't remember deciding to run. I remember being back at the folding table with my heart slamming against my ribs, gripping my phone so hard my knuckles ached, telling myself I'd imagined the voice, that concrete rooms distort sound in strange ways, that I was exhausted from a double shift and hearing things that weren't there. My laundry had 11 minutes left on the cycle. I stood there and watched that timer count down, refusing to look anywhere except the machine. At 6 minutes left, the fluorescent lights along the far wall shut off, one after another in sequence, moving steadily down the road toward me like something was walking beneath them and killing each one as it passed. I grabbed my basket, left the wet laundry sitting in the machine, and ran for the elevator, hitting the call button over and over, even though I could see it was already lit. The doors opened just as the last light nearest to me went dark, plunging that entire side of the garage into full black. And I threw myself inside and slammed the door close button until the doors finally shut. I stood there in the elevator shaking, watching the numbers climb. And just before the doors opened onto my floor, I heard, very clearly from directly outside them, that same flat voice say, "Almost." The doors opened onto my own hallway, completely empty, exactly the way it should have looked. I ran to my apartment, locked every lock I had, and didn't sleep at all that night. I never went back down for my laundry. I called the building's front desk the next morning and told them I'd left a load in one of the machines. and I asked as casually as I could manage whether construction was still happening on the lower level. The woman on the phone told me, a little confused, that there hadn't been any construction work scheduled in that garage for over 6 months, and that the area had actually been fully cleared and reopened weeks earlier. I asked about the plastic sheeting and the caution tape. She said there wasn't any. I broke my lease 3 months later, paid the penalty without a single complaint, and moved to a building with in-unit laundry, no questions asked. To this day, I don't know what was folded up behind that sheeting, or what it meant by not being ready to be seen yet, or what exactly it thought was almost finished by the time those elevator doors closed. I just know I have never, in the years since, been able to stand in an empty parking garage without immediately checking every dark corner twice before I let the door close behind me.